If you could just start by walking us through how your career has panned out.
Well, my father-in-law in the late 90s was looking for care for his dad, who was a World War II veteran, one of the guys on Normandy Beach back in the day. And he was a diabetic and needed ongoing care and a place to live where he could get services.
Right.
And my in-laws at the time had a company that helped people find apartments. And he realized how complicated the senior care industry was and that there was no singular source of information that helped families navigate it. And so in the 90s, he created what was called the Senior Housing and Resource Guide, which was just a digest magazine that helped people know what questions to ask, what services were out there, how to compare those services. And over the years, our media company has evolved into providing a website that goes across the country and really helps families get empowered with information so they can make their best care decisions and housing decisions. To your point, I like to say I fell into the industry backwards.
Yeah.
I had been in media and had a non-compete and was engaged to my husband at the time and in my early 20s. And my future father-in-law said, well, we want to expand into North Carolina. Come join our company. Do this for a year to work out your non-compete.
Yeah.
And then you can go do whatever you want to do after that. And so I joined for what I thought was going to be a short-term gig. And it was almost 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I fell in love with this industry. My grandfather had dementia when I was a teenager. And unfortunately, he received not great care. And it was heartbreaking watching my mom and my grandmother struggle with his care. So, fast forward 5 or 6 years and I'm in the industry and I'm seeing how wonderful living in these communities can be for seniors, and that great care is out there, but the families need to be empowered about how to evaluate that and how to look into it.
Is it easier today, or is it like overwhelming amount of information that's available today?
I can't speak to the 90s. I wasn't in the industry then.
Yeah.
What I can say is from the early 2000s until today, the industry is so much more complicated, and consumers are more complicated now than they used to be. And so I think there's more available in supportive services and more unique options that families can kind of put together to carve out their aging path.
Right.
And it's more understood now. But in the early 2000s, assisted living as a term wasn't even commonly used by consumers at all.
Okay.
I don't even remember if Google Trends was around in the early 2000s. I know it was at around 2010. But if you had looked at Google Trends back then, nursing home was really the only term being researched. Right. Now, assisted living is understood as a concept by consumers. You look at mass media and you see things like Man on the Inside featuring someone living in a retirement living community, a gorgeous one in San Francisco, nonetheless. And so that experience is just more understood. That being said, nursing home is still one of the most researched terms. But I think that the more we can, as an industry, highlight the moments of joy, the relationship, and the special way that we allow family members to just be a wife again or just be a daughter again versus a caregiver, that's where our industry can blossom and really help support families in the way we would all want to be supported ourselves. I see it with my own friend group where one of my good friends used to be very connected to her mom, where they were best friends. But now her mom is going through some memory issues. And she has become her mom's sense of authority, her mom's sense of decision-making, and it's a lot. The relief of being able to just be a daughter again and connect with your mother over the things that were special to you 10 years ago. It's a gift our industry can give families.
And you had mentioned last time also, Katharine, that earlier these facilities were viewed as more clinical spaces, but now, like you mentioned, they are more like communities which are not clinical in nature, right? They're about people, they're about relationships, they're about lifestyle-driven environments. So how has that changed?
I think at some point the industry realized they needed to invite hospitality in and create spaces that were beautiful, inviting, and places people wanted to be. When I first got into the industry, you'd walk into a community and it had that clinical feel, that clinical smell, and you kind of knew this is where you come for care, but it's not where you come to thrive. And I think that's the difference in communities today. They look a lot more holistic in the way they build their programming, in the way they build their activities and their social functions. And the spaces look like places you would want a vacation at. And I mean, who doesn't want to retire that way, right? And I think some providers are really connecting with that. I've seen some of the most fun TikToks that are being done with residents and other fun things. By incorporating the residents in that, you're really highlighting what life inside the community looks like and the sense of camaraderie that's built. Really, what we see on seniorsguide.com is people are interested in connections. They're reading material on our site about connecting with their family, about repairing relationships, about how to find romantic interests. And that fascinates me. And it shows you that seniors are thinking about how they can build a network around them of love and friendship.
Practically, how do you design your content, marketing, distribution so that it can connect with the 80-year-old senior or the 75-year-old senior and also with their caregiver?
So, I mean, what we see on our site is that seniors, and you could call that boomers and above, right? They love to consume information and they will watch videos. Their completion rate on videos is much higher than any other generation. And these seniors will watch a full 5-minute video, especially if it's showing what life inside the community could look like, because they're thinking about it on behalf of themselves. And what we're also seeing is the group in retirement right now, they are tech savvy to a degree, right? More so than they were 10 years ago. They're used to going online to do their research. So they're going through these rabbit holes, and we see them come on our site for maybe a recipe, and then they go and visit all of this information about senior living. Or they may come on our site to play a game, and then they trail off on what is demonstrative of dementia development. And they're doing this research themselves because they were the caregivers helping their parents 15 years ago, right? And so they have an awareness of what they want and how they want to control their aging journey. So for that audience, you want complete information. You want their answers, their questions answered. Now, then you have the Gen Xers or the millennials who could be in that family member influencer spot. We want short, quick, get to the facts,
to the point.
Right? And what we see on those user studies on seniorsguide.com, they're really focusing in on care levels and what kind of care. They're focusing in on ratings. They want to see the social proof that your community is taking care of families really well. They focus in on location and they focus in on price. And so you want to get those 4 pieces of information in front of them really quickly and easily. And then you can build your longer narratives after you kind of get those things addressed for the younger folks.
And the first one that you spoke about, the care levels, right? What are the factors they look into when they look at care level of a particular facility or a particular community?
Well, they're probably looking at the local state ratings, right? That's what I would do. And then they're also looking for what other family members are saying about the care that you provide. And we build a conduit to that by featuring community Google star reviews. And then we also feature testimonials from the families so that these caregivers and seniors can see the social proof of the care you provide. When we see them doing research on care levels, the other thing that's interesting is the adult children are getting more granular on that. So if they already know their mom or dad needs a 2-person assist, they're looking for that verbiage to be reflected in the material they're reading. So the adult kids, they're looking for care, they're looking for cost, they're looking for reputation and location so they can make sure they're close by to go check on mom or dad.
Absolutely.
The senior wants to know what life inside the walls is really like. And they want to soak it up. They want to understand, okay, if I'm moving into that building, what am I going to wake up to every day? We've seen some interest in day in the life videos. and how
Okay.
that can really connect the dots for folks in a fun way. It's a social media trend, but that can influence the content that you put on your site or in other platforms to help influence what that perception is.
How do you sort of bridge that content gap? How do you get the relevant content on your page for so many facilities listed across the US?
I mean, we do that ourselves. We know our audience better than anybody. So we white glove our profiles. And what that means is we build the profiles for the communities that want to work with us.
Amazing.
And yeah, we customize it. Of course, they get a chance to review it and read it. And we want to make sure that we are addressing visibility. We want the communities to be very visible. And then we want to make sure we're addressing all of those questions the adult kids could have, along with the long narratives that the seniors are going to look for as well. We don't want to be the place someone gets every piece of information they need. We want to be the place they launch
Enabler.
from, connect with the provider, right? We want to meet families where they are, and we want to help them take their next steps in the way that's comfortable for them. And that means they can reach out to providers via a form fill, clicking to the provider site, or making a phone call, or even just popping by because we have the interactive map and directions at the bottom of each profile. That being said, we protect our users' data. If someone fills out a form fill on our site, that only goes to the community you've shown interest in. It is not shared with 5 other communities nearby. We approach it with what would have supported our family, what would have supported the families we've seen go through this. And we want to make sure that our content speaks to every facet of their journey. Folks who are coming into this decision-making journey for themselves or for their family, they're already overwhelmed, right?
I know.
It is heartbreaking watching someone you love kind of get to the point where they can't do what they've always done in the past. And we want to meet people in that heartbreak with a supportive, reassuring journey, right?
Do you also help members and family members cope with saying that this is actually better for you and the family?
Well, and yeah, of course. And it's because some of our writing staff has been through this themselves. So they speak from their heart with their narrative about what emotions they were feeling and how conflicted they were. And by sharing that from the voice of someone who's been there, it's so reassuring to our audience that, okay, what I'm going through, it's chaos and it's hard, but it's not completely unique. And isn't that what we all want to know when we're in the midst of a big challenge? We want to know we're not alone.
2 questions. One is, how do facilities address the fact that they have this breadth and depth of clinical support without it being overly, clinical, number 1. And number 2, how are you seeing this change, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be, on everyone's website, there needs to be an FAQ, right? And the FAQ is a great place where you can walk through some of the more clinical pieces of it. And that also sets you up for keyword searches if someone is searching for that level of acumen. The other way of handling it is through narratives and through, those resident shared content pieces. And they will talk about it in a softer way, but it can still reveal itself that way. And that can be very reassuring for the seniors themselves, who we know will take on long form content, right? I think in general, consumers want to be in control of their own buying journey. And so my thought is, if we're serving our audience and we're serving seniors better, then everything else will come.
One other topic, and a hot topic nowadays, is artificial intelligence, right? How are you seeing it impacting your business?
I was just at our big annual conference in Vegas, and AI was every other word on the agenda. Yeah. It's fascinating to see how providers are leaning into the experimentation around AI while making sure they protect the families and the data around their residents, which is really imperative, right? AI, it's a game changer. And we as a company are, of course, leaning into the flexibility around it. But I have a huge policy with my team, and that is we don't publish without human review anything. And so we see AI as a conduit of automation and a conduit for moving forward on tactics, but AI is not our strategist. AI doesn't replace the human kind of concept of how to structure a conversation. It just will kind of fill in things, right? Use it to get to third base quicker, but don't let it take you completely from home plate to home plate all by itself.
I get
It
it.
needs governance.